who has urged strikes on Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So we're going to get to that story and continue to keep you updated on what this means. But first, I want to start off a little closer to home because testimony in the Tiffany Foster disappearance and murder case is continuing today with a former county inmate telling jurors he was actually working with law enforcement to help find her because he believed she was still alive. Now, Doug Evans has been on this story truly from the very beginning. He joins us live from the Coweta County Courthouse. Doug, it's great to see you and bring you into the conversation. It sounds like another interesting day in this trial. Tell me what you've been hearing.
Well, let's talk about Curtis Culbertson. That's the inmate that you were talking about, Ariel. And you can go ahead and roll the tape. Let's show the folks what he looks like in court today. Investigators say Culbertson is just another person duped by Tiffany Foster's fiancé, Reginald Robertson. Culbertson took the stand, told jurors that while he and Robertson were inmates locked up in the Coweta County Jail at the same time back in 2021, he allowed Robertson to use his phone privileges to make a call, and that call was actually recorded, as all calls are in the Coweta County Jail. In that call, Robertson's voice is heard telling someone on the other end to get some canned goods that he has and put them down a pipe that goes into the ground at a house. And Culbertson told jurors he thought that meant that Tiffany might still be alive, and that food in an underground pipe going to a basement might be for her. And so he worked with law enforcement, he said, in an effort to save her. Turns out that that was all a ruse. Just another one of Robertson's misdirections, investigators say, in their attempt to locate Tiffany Foster over the years. In fact, a number of law enforcement officers testified about numerous searches of wells, property, sometimes with cadaver dogs, 4 years of it, and Tiffany Foster's never been found, echoing the prosecutor's words in opening statement that she's not here to tell her story. And so they're doing their best to tell it for her. Late Monday afternoon, yesterday, an FBI cell phone expert testified that Tiffany's phone disconnected from the Verizon network at 4:09 a.m. on March 1st, and that's when she's believed to have disappeared. All the calls then went to voicemail. That same expert testified that Robertson and co-defendant Jeremy Walker, well, their cell phones were pinging in close proximity to one another at numerous locations around Coweta County at that time. So listen, there's been a lot of evidence so far about that November 13th, 2020 episode in which he's accused of kidnapping her, tying her up with zip ties, threatening her with a gun. In fact, there's a 911 recording that we've told you about. And so Curtis Culbertson, that inmate, he told the story again. He's just in a long line of witnesses who have repeated that story, that confession of Robertson to them, and he told the same story, that Robertson said that he beat her and that he tied her up and he threatened her with a gun. So there's been a lot of evidence about that kidnapping that has been presented so far in the 5 days of testimony, Ariel, that we've heard so far. But as for the murder itself, there's been no bombshell evidence that we've heard so far that has linked Robertson and then by extension Jeremy Walker, the co-defendant, to either the murder or the concealment of her death. And so we're waiting for that, and I think the jurors are too. And so the prosecution, we're told, could wrap up by midweek this week.
Doug, this is always so interesting. I think one of the biggest questions I have right off the bat is just how did the jury seem to react to this inmate's testimony? Were you able to kind of see if they had any facial expressions or what their body language was conveying at all?
Yeah, you know, the only time that I saw an exchange from the jurors today was when a GBI ballistics expert was testifying. There was a long segment of the testimony this morning that had to do with 2 guns that were turned into the sheriff's office. And so a detective testified that he took possession of the guns and boxed them, and they sent them to the GBI. Then the GBI analyzed these guns, and they took a shell casing that had been found at that abandoned house for the November 2020 kidnapping case. There was a shell casing found in that abandoned house, and they took one of these guns and they did a comparison of the shell casings, the strike marks on the casings and everything, and show in the end the expert said, nah, it wasn't a match. Wasn't a match.
Yeah.
I saw 2 of the jurors turn to each other, look at each other, smile, and shake their heads. So I don't know what that means.
Right.
But it means, I don't know if they felt like I did, that we're leading to something. Here we are. Here we go. Here's the evidence that ties it all together, and then wasn't a match.
Right.
So,
You know, it's so interesting too, Doug, because yesterday we were talking just a little bit about how the video footage or traffic footage appeared to kind of disrupt potentially Robertson, her fiance's testimony. I'd have to imagine, you know, especially if the jury's paying attention during all this, taking notes, that they probably have thoughts that may not always be visible. But it's one of the more fascinating parts of a trial, for me at least, is to just, what does the jury think? Because at the end, they're going to be the ones to decide this.
And we just don't know, and they're hard to read. They are taking a lot of notes. It was very complicated testimony. You know, one thing that we haven't talked about, if I could just talk about real briefly.
Sure, we have another minute.
Ariel, there was, okay, listen, there was a video that was played yesterday in court, and it was recorded by Reginald Robertson himself, of him and Tiffany in bed. Tiffany is laying there asleep. In fact, she's snoring, and you can hear that. And he's got his head right next to her, like if this was her face. He's got his head looking at the camera, right? And he's got his phone up, and he's talking to the camera. And he's telling her, I didn't mean to hold you down. That's not the way that I want this. And I don't want to hurt you. I just want to love you. I got to tell you, that was a really creepy video. And when we talk about jury reactions, they were physically showing signs of being creeped out by that video. I don't know what this has to do with anything, but it's creepy. It's really, really creepy that he would record this video with a sleeping Tiffany Foster and say these weird things. And I'm told from law enforcement that that's not the only recording that they have of him doing that he did it many, many times, of her asleep and him recording himself talking to her and recording it.
Doug, it's interesting to think about why anyone would record that kind of interaction. And then, as you say, you know, law enforcement's telling you multiple other videos, similar videos were also taken. So I can understand why the prosecution would have played something like that for the jury. We are running out of time. I do enjoy our conversation so much, and I know we're going to continue to chat on this as things continue. I understand the defense will probably present their case here at some point, and looking forward to hearing what they have to say as well. So, Doug, thank you so much, as always. Okay, guys, I want to continue to keep you updated here as we examine the effects of the federal government shutdown here at home, its impacts on Georgia families and families across the nation. So the heads of Georgia's Head Start, or rather I should say Georgia Head Start program providers, actually held a roundtable to discuss the effects of the federal government shutdown. As you might imagine, this is affecting thousands of families right here in Georgia. And keep in mind, what leaders are really concerned about is the potential closure of essential programs that they say could have a ripple effect on families. Our Deidre Dukes was there at that roundtable, and she joins us live. Deidre, it is great to see you. Give us a little bit of an overview of the concerns here. What's really at stake?
That's right. And the bottom line here, Ariel, as you laid out for our viewers, we're being told that the situation is dire in regards to Georgia's Head Start program. Now, several of the largest Head Start providers did gather here for a media roundtable, and they were joined by employees with Head Start and also a family who is benefiting from the Head Start program. The mother that we heard from also has, in addition to children in the program, she actually works with Head Start and talked about how other families are being affected by the challenges that Head Start is seeing right now. Now, the three largest Head Start providers here in Georgia, the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, Sheltering Arms, and Easter Seals of North Georgia, they have secured emergency funding from the Community Foundation of Georgia, and that support will allow programs serving more than 5,800 children here across Georgia to remain operational for 45 that they're hopeful that that will provide a window for Congress to resolve the shutdown and renew expiring grants. If they didn't have that funding, they would have been forced to close on November 1st. We talked to an official with the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, and here's what she had to say.
It's really only been 6 days since we started pulling this together. It's happened very quickly. We have talked to every representative we can from U.S. representatives. We keep in touch with our senators. We are burning up the phone lines with all elected officials. We've reached out to the city. We've reached out to the state. Everyone knows where we are. And at some point, we realized that our advocacy was not going to keep our doors open. So we went to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, and they assembled donors who believe in the work that we do with early childhood education. And they came forward within 48 hours last week, between Wednesday and Friday, to say we will stand up a bridge loan so we don't have to close our doors at the end of this week. Again, it's unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened, and I think that speaks to how important this work is and how desperately families need it.
As you heard there, Ariel, that bridge loan is in fact really a lifeline for these organizations as they work to keep Head Start operating. And it's important to note that in addition to the vital educational services that Head Start provides, they also provide services like 2 hot meals a day for these children, and they also provide family support services. And it's so important to note that, as they said, a lot of the people who take advantage of these programs are working class families who are low income families who are working outside the home, and in addition to their children losing out if they didn't have these programs. They sent a lot of these programs, like, for instance, a lot of the families like TSA workers, for instance, and others who do go report to work, provide for the federal government, as well as also military personnel, saying that they would be forced to stay home because they would not have what is often seen as daycare. These Head Start programs serving as daycare and additional to educational opportunities for a lot of these families. And Ariel, I also want to note that it's important for folks to realize that while thankfully Head Start programs here, the 3 largest providers here in North Georgia, were able to secure this loan, that's not the case for similar programs in South Georgia. And so those here did note that, unfortunately, those Head Start programs in South Georgia, they have not received a lifeline, this bridge loan, as those here have received. And so if this is not all resolved before November 1st, if the Democrats and Republicans don't come to some sort of an agreement to get the federal government shutdown lifted, these Head Start programs in South Georgia will be forced to close their doors come November 1st. And it's just very alarming for all those involved, those who support these programs, operate them, as well as the families who are directly impacted. So this is a very serious situation, Ariel.
Yeah, Deidre, a dire time because, you know, so many families, daycare is like another income, right? And if you're not able to work to provide for that, if you don't have those options or resources available to you, what are you supposed to do? So For those who are unfamiliar, obviously Head Start is administered by a lot of programs or a lot of organizations like you just discussed, YMCA of Atlanta, Sheltering Arms. There's a lot of different programs that administer this. But if someone is streaming along, and they're thinking, hey, I need this assistance. Maybe they're watching us from South Georgia and they are not in this situation that we are here in North Georgia. Where are places for them to find resources? Do you know of any? If someone's watching and they think, hey, how can I get help in this situation? Have you been able to find anything to that effect from who you've been speaking with today?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the best advice that you could give these families at this time is to go through those programs and organizations that they're working with at this point, because they are, of course, because they are in such support of these families. They are, of course, doing everything they can to help not only keep their doors open, but help find some other resources for these families. So in addition to reaching out to their own particular Head Start program, also reaching out to the state and local services to see what opportunities or resources may be available there, because as you know, we do have a lot of private and public entities who have stepped up in recent days in an effort to help kind of bridge that gap. But as they said here, philanthropic organizations, efforts, private entities can only do so much, so much heavy lifting, I guess you could say. So at the end of the day, everyone is saying federal, state lawmakers have got to step up. This has got to be resolved soon, because the longer this carries out, the more and more difficult and challenging it is for thousands of families here in the state of Georgia alone.
Deidre, yeah, the cost, human cost, right, of the government shutdown. So thank you so much for always breaking this down for us so eloquently, letting us know where to find these resources. We really appreciate your time in the conversation today. Thank you, Deidre. Okay, guys, I want to let you know what's happening on Capitol Hill right now as the government shutdown continues. You got to hear some of the local impacts from our Deidre Dukes just now, and I want to take you out live to the Capitol Hill. You can see right here on your screen, you're taking a live look at the Senate floor, where senators failed to pass a bill earlier today to end the government shutdown, and then, of course, in the bottom right, the Capitol Dome. I want to keep you updated on the situation and where we stand, because the pressure to end the second longest federal government shutdown is gaining new urgency. SNAP benefits are set to run out by November 1st. Federal workers are missing their first full paychecks. And of course, we're starting to see recurring delays at airports across the nation. So the biggest thing to think about right now as we look at today is that we are starting to see a lot of union leaders hold news conferences. These union leaders represent everybody from federal employees to air traffic controllers, stepping up and saying we have to find a deal and make sure workers receive full pay. Everett Kelly, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, said the two political parties have made their points at this time, and now it's time to find a resolution because the human cost is mounting. One thing to keep in mind, Democratic senators, including those representing states with many federal workers, are not ready to back down. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine said he was insisting on commitments from the White House to prevent the administration from mass firing more federal workers. He also said he wanted Democrats in his party want Congress to extend subsidies for health care plans under the Affordable Care Act. As long as this continues to go on, the shutdown could grow more painful because more Americans will miss pay. I do want to dip in live. It looks like just a little bit ago, we know that Senate Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, or rather I should say House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, was just holding a news conference. And right now we see other lawmakers speaking. So let's dip in and listen to a little bit of what they have to say. This is happening live.
Was the issue of health care and the premium subsidies and the Medicaid cuts. It's $1 trillion and the skyrocketing costs that are now upon people at this very, very moment. And the other thing that we spoke about, and there was a consensus about this, that what we needed to do was in the future, when the appropriators came to a conclusion, that would stick, and that we wouldn't have any unelected bureaucrats who were saying, no, money's going here, money's going there, everywhere, except for where it was appropriate. We had consensus about that. Not a few days later, on the table, bang. This is a Republican continuing resolution, and therefore that's what it is. In the meantime, yes, staff in both the House and the Senate have worked on those 3 bills, and I would just say they have made progress on the bills. But the issue now is coming to the table to be able to deal with the continuing resolution and the issues that have been central to that, which is cutting the costs and canceling the cuts and saving America's health care. Now, you may want to ask, what does that have to do with the bill? Well, the continuing resolution is 91 pages. 67 of those pages are about.
Okay, so you can hear Democrats are talking a little bit about what is important to them as it relates to health care and what their sticking points are. And on the other side, we know that House Speaker Mike Johnson, this is according to Politico, held a phone call with House Republicans today. And in this private call, apparently it was reiterated, again, according to Politico's reporting, that the GOP has no plan to put forward a standalone bill that would fund food aid benefits like SNAP, as well as for federal workers' pay. So keep in mind that's something that people have discussed is, could we put ahead a standalone bill that would fund some of these aid programs, as well as make sure that some federal workers like our air traffic controllers could get their money. We have not seen a resolution to that. Again, Politico reporting that House Speaker Mike Johnson made it clear to House Republicans that that is not a priority. So we will continue to keep you updated. In the meantime, I'd like to take you out live to Atlanta's airport. Atlanta is just one of many airports facing challenges in this situation because, as we know, a lot of air traffic controllers are showing up unpaid. They are essential workers. And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy called on Congress today to work things out. He held a news conference at New York's LaGuardia Airport to discuss the ongoing impact of the shutdown and the toll it's taking on air traffic controllers. He was joined by several controllers working without pay and their union leader, Nick Daniels. Let's listen into a little bit about what he had to say.
Oftentimes, these guys are nameless and they're faceless, but they're the men and women who work in our towers to make sure that our flights are on time, that our flights aren't delayed, and your flights are safe. And so I wanted you to have a chance to see a few of the men and women who aren't getting paid today, the men and women who rely on the paychecks from the federal government to support their families, to pay their car payments, to pay their rent, to pay for gas in their vehicles, to get into work. It puts food on their table. Yesterday, I had a controller who talked to me about his 9-year-old, 10-year-old daughter who made the traveling volleyball team. And as many of us know, it's an honor when your child makes the traveling team, but with that comes a cost. You have to pay to be part of that team. And he had to talk to his 9-year-old daughter about her not being able to join that team because he had to preserve and reserve his money because he thought that this day would come, the fact that he wasn't going to get paid for his work as an air traffic controller. It's those stories that are happening throughout our community that are having real impact on these controllers' lives. I've been clear to our air traffic controllers, they need to show up for work. They do really important work for our country, and they need to show up. But I'm not going to lie to...
And that is Secretary Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, discussing the federal government shutdown. Now, Duffy also talked a little bit about whether or not it's safe to fly. He said that it is safe at this time, but if staffing issues do continue, if they persist at airports across the country and cause an unsafe level of staffing, then they will be forced to slow down air traffic or stop it altogether. And this, of course, as you might expect, frustrations for travelers, especially as we approach the busy holiday season. I also want to let you know about what DoorDash is doing, because this may affect some of you. You may find this helpful. DoorDash is stepping up because as food assistance benefits are set to expire this Saturday, DoorDash says that they are launching an emergency food response initiative. Their crisis plan is intended to help people who lose supplemental nutritional assistance programs like SNAP benefits. And they say that they're going going to deliver about 1 million meals to food bank partners and waive fees for more than 300,000 SNAP recipients who order groceries from participating retailers within the app. The company added that it's going to donate food to local food banks from its online convenience store DashMart. The president of Alliance to End Hunger says the suspension of SNAP benefits could negatively affect more than 40 million Americans. Okay, guys, I want to switch gears here because this was the breaking news I teased to you guys when we first started our 2 o'clock streaming hour. And this involves the peace deal in the Middle East. We just learned that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered immediate and powerful strikes on Gaza. Earlier, Israeli officials said that the remains of a hostage returned by Hamas were body parts of another hostage who was recovered by Israeli troops almost 2 years ago. Central to this issue in this ceasefire is the fact that Hamas needs to return 13 deceased hostages. Hamas has said with all of the airstrikes and the rubble in Gaza, it is going to take an extended period of time to find the remains of the deceased. But Israeli leaders, specifically Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, says this isn't good enough, and they believe Hamas is stalling. It is not immediately clear if these strikes have been launched by Israel. The U.S. State Department has not responded yet on this situation. As you know, President Trump and the United States have been very vocal in making sure that this ceasefire stays intact. So we're going to continue to keep you updated as this continues. But keep in mind, this is the ongoing situation right now in the Middle East. Guys, coming up, I want to get you a check of what is happening in Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa makes landfall. Devastating storm. And we're going to discuss the impacts right here with meteorologist Jonathan Stacy. And that's coming up. Well, welcome in. I'm Ariel Onstad here with meteorologist Jonathan Stacy. And Jonathan, big news right now. Hurricane Melissa making landfall in Jamaica. I've pulled some video of incredible images. You can see this was from the Hurricane Hunters Monday. And the U.S. Defense Department sent out the U.S. Air Force Reserve crew to capture these incredible images of Melissa as it neared Jamaica. incredible because this is a Category 5 storm. Is that still true? Tell us where we're at with this storm. What is happening as Melissa makes landfall? I know, tragically, some deaths have already been reported. So where do we stand?
So at this hour, we're coming off of the landfall hour, and the eye is pretty much all on land at this point. The storm made landfall near New Hope, Jamaica, and winds held on all the way. Those record-breaking 185-mile-per-hour winds hit land with the pressure level dropping down to 882.
That's significant.
Yeah, very, very significant. Generally, low pressures are in the 900s, just to give you some context there. This is the strongest landfall on record in the Atlantic Basin, tying with the 1935 Labor Day hurricane. Hurricane hunters went inside, as you could see there, and there were points in time. We're talking about not sustained winds. Sustained winds 150 miles an hour. You're seeing this video here of preparations after the rain started to flow earlier in the week. But those aircraft that went inside the storm, they found winds up to 250 miles an hour in terms of gusts. Now, so we have now gotten past, there's nothing I can give you. Like, now we're at planes in the air. Type of speeds. You know, this is beyond what you see on a NASCAR racetrack and all that kind of stuff. More than your V8 engine and all that kind of stuff can perform. These are numbers that you don't see on your car dashboard.
No, not at all. This is getting close to the speeds that airplanes travel.
Yeah, that's where you're getting.
That's your range that we're talking about here. So incredible to think, right? So the wind obviously is incredibly part of this damage. But as we look at this, I know one of the big concerns was the fact that Hurricane Melissa was slow moving. It was set to stay on Jamaica and just dump massive amounts of water. Are you seeing that?
And so if we pull up our radar imagery here, what you're seeing right now is satellite. I'm going to show you some radar. And we're not looking at things here at home, but if I can bring up our tropical satellite picture and go down here, sometimes a little bit difficult for me to get these images up. We're just going to go back to the hurricane satellite imagery here. But yeah, they've been getting that rainfall for 36 hours. And so it is not only what they're getting as the storm moves over, but it's what they've already received that is significant. And then the storm has a tail, a backside of it too. And even as the storm moves back into the Caribbean Sea, albeit temporarily, the lower bands will still provide chances for rain. And those, you know, when it's all said and done, the rainfall amounts, there was a really long range between 15 and 30 inches. So we'll likely fall somewhere in between 20 inches there. The storm picked up a bit of speed, climbed up to about 9 miles an hour in forward motion. So that was better than 1 and 2 and 3 miles an hour that we saw over the weekend. So, but, you know, I think at this point we're just trying to, you know, they're riding through this storm as we speak. So there's not a lot of information for us. There's not a lot, you know, we can't really get a lot of ground truth. I do have some hope based on some of the live cameras I was watching that maybe this storm was just not as bad in terms of its impact versus its data. But we're going to have to wait and see.
And I think that's the thing, right? A lot of times when you're going through storms like this, you're in that quiet part where you reach the eye of the storm and people are trying to stay safe. And so data and getting information out has not happened yet. That will come.
And that's secondary. You know, this is
life,
all,
save your life first.
Exactly. And even you get to a point in every storm, whether it be a snowstorm here in Georgia or a hurricane making landfall, that even emergency officials have to say, we have to do what we need to do now to keep ourselves safe so we can then go out and start to help and assist people who may have had a harder time going through the storm. We can't be out anymore. So, you know, so I think that is where the people of Jamaica find themselves in right now.
And I think it's also important to note that when we are in this standpoint, to your, I think, point earlier is a lot of times people go, oh, it's not that bad because they're not seeing it on social media yet, right? Or because they're not really as plugged into what's going on, but make no mistake, this is a
and it will
monster
take
of a
some time.
storm.
Yeah, and that's why, you're spot on for saying that, Ariel. There's going to be a lot of data throwing around.
Yes.
And I kind of, I swallow the line with that because the numbers are staggering.
Yes.
But this is humanity being impacted in places where people live. Just to give you an idea in terms of size, the island of Jamaica is about the size of the state of Massachusetts. So it's a pretty, Massachusetts
tiny.
is one of our smaller states in the United States. And so the island is very tiny. They're about 145 miles from east to west, north to south, about 50 miles there.
Right.
It has a pretty rugged topography, got some mountains in there. So we're going to see if the storm reacts to that interaction with the land, that topographic change, but it's back into the waters briefly, and then it's eastern Cuba that we're going to find out, and that could potentially, Jamaica is I don't want to get this wrong here. They have some infrastructure that could have possibly survived the storm for sure.
Sure.
Cuba, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Especially eastern Cuba. It's more rural there. It's more mountainous in that area. And the U.S. has interest there. Guantanamo Bay, if you've lived in the U.S. for, 50 years, Guantanamo Bay has been an area that we have definitely heard about in the news over the past 20 years since 9/11 and whatnot. So we'll see exactly how the storm manages to survive over that little fetch of water. But I think this could be a pretty potent storm, not just for Jamaica, as we're already seeing, but eastern Cuba. It's going to be interesting to see what the story is there.
Yeah, eastern Cuba, and it heads on, of course, from there, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas.
Turks and Caicos and Bahamas, and then it starts speeding up. It's it's kind of interesting. So we had a rain yesterday. So that cold front rolled off the coast, and that acted as a rudder to start giving that storm, exactly, to help it
no
move on
no
out.
warm energy for you here.
You're not going over here, but what we're going to do is we're going to help push that on out.
Yeah.
So it's a boundary line there, and that storm is getting some. It's moving a little bit more swiftly than it did previously. We can zoom in here and kind of get a tighter look. So the eye wall nearing Montego Bay for most Americans, or even people who are watching us that may perhaps be in the Caribbean, this is the area that you're most familiar with. It's a big vacation hub there, Ocho Rios, and it's on the north side of the island, but still about 30-40 miles away from the center, and then you have Kingston, which is further away, and I'm not for sure that they'll see hurricane force winds in Kingston. I think I don't think they'll bear the brunt of the storm at all.
Jonathan, this is always interesting to talk to you, especially on such important subject matter. I know we have a huge Jamaican diaspora here in Atlanta, so absolutely hoping that all of your friends and family stay safe as we continue to track the effects of Hurricane Melissa. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining, giving us an update on what to expect as this storm continues to move. You guys, coming up next, we're going to be checking in with our Angelique Proctor about some community leaders discussing a new police precinct building, why they think it's important, and what it would mean for the community. That's coming up next. Well, welcome back. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for streaming along here with us on your Tuesday afternoon. I want to tell you about some community leaders in Atlanta's Zone 6, that's in the east side, who are calling on the city of Atlanta to repair, or rather, I should say, build a new precinct for the Atlanta Police Department. This precinct serves 25 neighborhoods on the east side of the city, and our Angelique Proctor joins us live now. She's been following up on this for us. Angelique, it is great to see you. I understand you've been speaking with community leaders who want this new building. What are some of the big problems that they're pointing out?
Well, good afternoon to you, Ariel. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And this is really a grassroots effort by community leaders to make a difference in their community. They, very simply put, want their police officers to be working in a much better environment and surroundings. They say that this Zone 6 precinct building here on Hosea Williams Drive is substandard and includes black mold. They say that black mold was found earlier this year and remediated earlier this year, but they point out this is the second time that mold has been found in that same building. Now, they believe it's time for this workplace environment to be upgraded. They say that officers put their lives on the line for us every day, and they should have decent working conditions.
How you treat the officers affects how they feel about their jobs and where they work. And if the environment that they come to every day doesn't reflect the respect that they deserved, then that's bound to affect morale.
And they definitely believe that morale has been affected. Now, these community leaders say they aren't just making demands. They say they have rolled up their own sleeves and raised money for these officers to buy lots of things. Thousands of dollars to speckle and repaint the walls, to purchase tables for roll call, and even shelving for officers to store water here at the precinct. They say their efforts, however, though, cannot replace the city's responsibility and what the city needs to do to provide an adequate workplace. So they reached out to Mayor Andre Dickens back in August.
We sent a letter to the mayor and the city council to say that these officers put their lives on the line every day to protect thousands of residents and businesses across nearly 25 neighborhoods, and they deserve a precinct that is safe, clean, and secure, and is designed for 21st century policing.
And these neighbors or leaders say that they reached out to the mayor 2 months ago. They say they still have heard nothing back, and so they are concerned and brought it to us, the media. We have reached out to the city as well. We are waiting to hear back from them. But as I did a little digging today, I found out the building is actually owned by a church here, Israel Baptist Church, that's on the same street. The pastor, the senior pastor there, tells me the building is actually 70 years old. And so these community leaders say it is time for an upgrade, and they have started doing some research to try to find other locations.
Angelique, wow, 70 years old. That's just incredible. I'd imagine it makes sense why they would want a new building. I'm curious, in your discussions with them and maybe your research with what you know about this city, do you know how much it would cost for a new police precinct building? Is that something you'd be aware of?
Actually, I do not know, and I did ask them, and they said it's just a matter of what they find, and they've been looking at various locations, and we all know real estate is pretty high today, but this would be something that they could possibly lease again if they didn't purchase and build a new building. So they are looking around right now, but they certainly want to start having these conversations with the mayor and city officials, and the city council person in this area is already on board with them. Alex Wong's staff tells me that he certainly supports them and would like to see the Zone 6 officers get a newer facility.
Angelique, just incredible, too, to hear you talk with those community members and to hear that they stepped up and raised $3,500 to help spackle and repaint walls, purchase tables for roll call. I mean, talk about a community coming together for their officers and wanting to make their community a better place. It's a really inspiring thing. Final question to you, for those who are unfamiliar, what neighborhoods does Zone 6 serve?
Well, Zone 6 serves not far from the TV station, up and down Memorial Drive in this area. The home Ormwood is one of the neighborhoods. You know, it's quite an affluent area of the city, 25 neighborhoods, as they pointed out. Now, in some areas, I know in the Buckhead area, they have a foundation that has raised additional money to sort of supplement and create precincts. That has not been done in this community as of yet, but that is something that they are aware of. So lots of communities, lots of very popular communities in Southeast Atlanta.
Angelique, thanks so much for bringing this story to our attention. Will be interesting to hear what the city has to say to you when they get back to you about what they might be doing in this situation. So thanks so much for your hard work on this and the conversation today. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, of course, when we get that information from the city of Atlanta, you can find it right here in the Fox Local app. We're going to update Angelique's story as the day continues, so stay tuned. When we get that information, you'll be able to find it right here. I want to continue to keep you updated on some local news stories that we're continuing to follow in the newsroom. Right now, a manhunt is underway for a man accused of killing his stepfather. Marietta police are looking for a 26-year-old man. Investigators say Farron Banks was involved in a dispute with 58-year-old Michael Jackson at an apartment along Ridge Run there in Marietta. Jackson was found with multiple gunshot wounds and rushed to the hospital. Overnight, police found an SUV they say that Banks used as a getaway car. You can see it there on your screen, a black Nissan Rogue, and the tow truck towing it away. We'll continue to keep you updated as the situation progresses. Our Kim Leffler is following this story. We know that that man, presumed to be the stepfather of Farron Banks, was shot multiple times during that dispute and taken to Wellstar Kennestone Hospital, where he died. So we'll continue to keep you updated. Meantime, taking a look at some national and international news at this point, I want to keep you updated on what is unfolding in Asia right now, because President Trump is gearing up for his visit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It's been a busy day for the president as he continues his trip throughout Asia. You can see him here meeting with U.S. troops stationed in Japan. He also met with Japan's new prime minister, vowing a golden age of alliance between Washington and Tokyo. Hundreds of sailors with cameras at the ready were trying to catch a glimpse of President Trump during his visit to Japan's Yokosuka Naval Base on Tuesday. So that is today, but keep in mind, Japan is ahead of us. So right now it's about 3 a.m. local time in Japan. So in the middle of the night right now. But as President Trump rallied the troops, he announced he's pushing for a pay raise for all U.S. service members. Accompanying him to the base was Japan's first female prime minister, Sanae Takaichi. She is, like I said, the first female prime minister of Japan. And as President Trump rallied those troops and accompanied or went on that visit with Japan's prime minister, he talked a little bit about a trade deal with the new prime minister. She inherited a trade deal from her predecessor, calling for more than $500 billion in U.S. investments. And of course, the real sticking point here is that Japan is going to invest in its military and defense to avert higher tariffs. This is something that President Trump has pushed to mitigate China's influence in the region. Though this deal was highly criticized in Japan, the new prime minister upheld it and signed a second agreement to ramp up mining and processing of rare earth minerals there in the country. So all, of course, happening in tandem here. We know that one of the big goals here, as you can see, President Trump meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping. This high-stakes trade talk is scheduled for Thursday morning in South Korea. So we will continue to keep you updated as that unfolds. President Trump is heading to South Korea a little bit later, and that is the last scheduled stop of his trip in Asia. So we'll continue to keep you updated as that unfolds. In the meantime, I do want to let you know about something that did happen in Japan as part of President Trump's visit. He also met with families in Japan who say that their loved ones were abducted by North Korea. So President Trump and the Japanese Prime Minister posed for pictures alongside these families of Japanese abductees. Some held up photos of their loved ones. Japan reported at least 17 of its citizens were abducted by the North from the 1970s to the 1980s, with 5 people returned by 2002. President Trump told reporters the U.S. is united with Japan. He, of course, wanted to listen to these families and hear a little bit more about their stories. But this is an issue that Japan's new prime minister cares deeply about. You can see her standing there to the right of President Trump. So as the president's visit unfolds in Asia, the big focus, the trade agreement between the United States and China, and what this looks like as we move forward with tariffs and, of course, commodities that the United States needs, like rare earth minerals. We're going to let you know right here in Fox Local. Coming up, you guys, we are going to switch gears here, and we're going to take a look at a podcast that is celebrating the launch of its 2nd season that is coming up, and we'll see you right here. Welcome back in. It is so good to see you here. It is International Bat Week. What a wonderful week to coincide with all things spooky. And our Chris Rosenthal is out at the Department of Natural Resources speaking with a conservation expert, wildlife biologist. So, Chris, great to see you. We're going bats for conservation over here, and I just have to say, I think bats are a little misunderstood.
Maybe a little misunderstood. Yeah, I'm in Watkinsville right now, and I'm at a heritage park in Watkinsville. And actually, if you look up here, you can see that's actually a bat house. We're estimating there's probably about 10 to 12 bats just hanging out up there, but they can fit hundreds, actually, or over 100 or so in that box. We actually had some video that we got earlier with this device here, a borescope, and I think we have some of that video that shows some of those bats in there just hanging out upside down, asleep and chilling out. But talk to me, this is Sam Holtz with the Department of Natural Resources, and we were talking earlier about how bats, we don't really see them much, but they're kind of everywhere, even on the highways.
Yeah, bats are roosting all around us. Parks like this, they're roosting in bat houses, but we can find them in trees, in barns. Lots of people call me about getting bats in their attic, but bats also like to roost in bridges and culverts underneath the highway. So in the wintertime, we do a lot of those surveys looking at bats using culverts and bridges as hibernacula.
Yeah, so when we're driving over, you're telling me like some areas of 75. I mean, there's a lot of them right under the road, and we don't even know about it, huh?
Yep, some of even the biggest highways that you think would be too noisy for any wildlife, they hang out under those bridges during the wintertime.
Now this is a bat box up here. It's got bats inside of it, but I mean, what do these bats do, at night?
Yeah, at night, these bats will leave the roost and they'll forage for insects throughout basically all night. They might take some breaks here and there, and then they'll come back to their roost at dawn.
Wow, and you probably can't hear it here, but they are, we can actually kind of hear them chirping a little bit up there. It is International Bat Week. Just real quick, you guys are going down to Savannah next week for a bat blitz. Just real quick what that is.
Yeah, next week we're doing a bat blitz where biologists from all over the Southeast are coming to help us sample an area over just a few nights, and over those 3 nights of catching bats, we'll be able to collect data that would take our department alone months to do. So we'll be able to see what species we have down there and maybe locate some of our rarer species that we're looking for.
Absolutely. Well, that's really, really cool. I mean, these bats are very prevalent creatures all over, more so than we realize, I think.
Yeah, Chris, I always love to learn a little bit more about this, and I wish I had more time with you. The time we've spent is excellent because it lets us know a little bit about what to expect and what to do if we find a bat. Obviously, panic is not the answer. We want to make sure we save these little guys. So, Chris Rosenthal, thanks so much for giving us a live look there. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, we are going to go ahead and switch gears here. I want to bring you back here in studio. We have Ryan Soche here with us. In case you don't know, Ryan is a host of How Do I Do This podcast that explores grief, growth, healing, and Ryan, you're about to launch season 2. Actually, you just did.
We did. Today, the first episode of season 2 launched and dropped, and it is about grief in the workplace and how do you excel in your career when you are in a funk for whatever reason. You've had a big life change. With me having the death of my mom, and we are talking with my good friend Colleen Nichols, who is a mom of 3. She has muscular dystrophy. She witnessed her father pass away from muscular dystrophy 7 years ago. She is still written a best-selling book and is a multimillionaire, has built a multi-million-dollar business. And so I asked her, how do you do grief at work? Yeah. How do you still lean in when it's really hard to show up some days?
What did she have to say in a nutshell? Tease it for us.
I don't want to give you all the spoilers away, but she gives you some small actionable things you can do every day. And I love that her advice is very personal. It really focuses on what are your minimums and also really saying, where are you in the grief process?
Right.
Is the grief really fresh? Has it been a few months out? And even if it's been a few months out, as I'm learning, grief has no timeline. Sometimes you can be put right back in the drain. And how to be kind to yourself, and that your best can look different from day to day. And I think as women, that's a message we really, really need. I saw something the other day that said, on a day you have 30% and you give 30%, you still gave 100%.
Right.
And so her message is one of really resilience. And any of those things would be hard, but she has achieved a lot, and she is somebody I wanted to learn more from, and I thought that the listeners and viewers would want to hear from too.
So you guys, if you are unfamiliar, How Do I Do This with Ryan, just like we've discussed, explores the good, the bad, the ugly of grief and growing. You can find it wherever you find your podcasts. Season 2 just is out today, so stay tuned. I know Ryan has a lot of exciting things in the works. We're going to be talking to a lot of different people, and I think what makes it so compelling is it's ordinary people with ordinary journeys, leading extraordinary lives and having this kind of experiences we can all relate to. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
I appreciate it.
Sharing a little bit about what to expect. And you guys, the news is going to continue here in our 3 o'clock hour, so stick with us. It has been a pleasure to see you here at 2.
You are live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Thanks so much for streaming with us today here on Fox Local. I'm Tom Haynes with you here with all of the stories that you need to know today. I want to take you to some spectacular pictures now of Hurricane Melissa. That is the eye wall of the storm taken by hurricane hunters. Some really remarkable pictures as this hurricane has made landfall now in Jamaica toward on the western side of the island. It is a monster Category 5 storm with winds packing 180 miles per hour, making it one of the most intense hurricanes on record. For days, Jamaica's government has warned people to get out of the way of this storm, and you can see the damage it has already wreaked on that island. It's likely going to be a long haul for the folks on the island of Jamaica, as power outages and structure damage are no doubt going to be left behind from Hurricane Melissa. Fears are growing that the destructive winds are only going to intensify, knocking down a lot of those buildings there. Meteorologist Alex Forbes is going to join us here on set in just a couple of minutes to talk about Melissa and where this massive storm is headed next. Well, today in local news marks Zero Paycheck Day as we take a live look over Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport right now for air traffic controllers, the folks in that tower that you see squarely in the middle of your screen. Even though controllers are at work, they are working overtime 6 days a week, 10 hours a day to keep these planes moving in and out of the airport. Our Kim Leffler is live at Hartsfield-Jackson International. Kim, we understand that there is a demonstration there of sorts today to inform travelers about the consequences of the government shutdown and these essential workers not getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. Members of the National Air Traffic Controllers Association are at airports across the country. They were here a little bit earlier today at the Atlanta airport, handing out flyers, as you said, educating people about the impact the government shutdown is having on them as it goes on. As you mentioned, today is the first day of a missed paycheck for the air traffic controllers. They did have a few days where they were not paid in their last paycheck as well, but this is the first full one. Now, the union says the lack of pay adds another layer of stress on workers on top of an already stressful job. As you said, many working 6 days a week. Air traffic controllers we spoke to say they're having to see if they can pause mortgage and car payments, some even needing to take second jobs during this time. Now, this all comes as air traffic controllers already faced a shortage before the government shutdown began. At a news conference today, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says flying is still safe. He says if any towers having staffing issues, they will slow everything down to keep travelers safe, which could result in delays or cancellations. Now, here's more from air traffic controller we spoke with earlier today about their goal of educating the public.
Today, I just want them to take away some information about how the shutdown is affecting us personally here in Atlanta, as your Atlanta-based air traffic controllers, as well as their help to reach out to the local elected officials and to have them end the shutdown. Air traffic controllers did not start the shutdown. We're not responsible for ending the shutdown. We're just stuck in the middle.
Now, this morning, the FAA did issue an air traffic advisory about staffing at the Atlanta Terminal Radar Approach Control Center, which is down at Peachtree City. They help with separation and direct planes heading here to the Atlanta airport. But I did just check, and we are seeing just a few delays. They have ticked up just a little bit as the day goes on. 114 delays here at the Atlanta airport, but only 10 cancellations. Tom?
You know, these delays are so frustrating. The consequences for these air traffic controllers, heartbreaking. I mean, starting to go without paychecks, yet showing up for work. And so travelers are being forced to reconcile the frustrations of traveling, Kim, with their hearts going out to these air traffic controllers who are having to show up to work without getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of travelers did tell the controllers that were out here today that they do support them. And that was one thing that the controllers handing out flyers today wanted them to know, is to turn that support into action. And they want them to contact their representatives about this government shutdown.
Yeah, it's something we're going to touch on here coming up here in the 3 p.m. hour. The status of the government shutdown. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill speaking from both sides. Kim Leffler live at Hartsfield-Jackson International with how this shutdown is affecting some of our most essential workers there in the towers of the airport. Kim, thanks. Now to a disturbing story out of Marietta, where a domestic dispute situation has turned deadly. Now police are searching for the victim's own stepson. Let's get out to Kevin Stewart. He's live on top of this story for us tonight. So, Kevin, there's a death here, and now there's a manhunt underway.
Yeah, they're looking for this 26-year-old, the stepson of Michael Jackson, the 58-year-old man who was killed allegedly by his own stepson at their apartment complex home, happening around 6:30 yesterday. It's a fascinating story that has really caught a lot of people off guard when you talk to people in the community. Jackson died at Wellstar Kennestone Hospital last night after the shooting. And I want to give you a look at the suspect. Again, that's the stepson. His name is Farron Banks. He's 26 years old. He's a tall, thin guy, 6'5", 160 pounds. He's considered dangerous. Police say he and his stepdad got into an argument. After the shooting, he ended up in Atlanta near the Atlanta University Center. His car was left at an apartment complex. I want you to take a listen to Marietta Police.
26-year-old Farron Banks, the stepson, left in a black Nissan Rogue before officers arrived on the scene. Bolo was put out a few hours ago. That information has been shared with local agencies. There is no perceived threat to the public at this time, but he is considered armed and could be dangerous, so we're asking the public to not approach if he is located. We are asking them to immediately call 911, and certainly anyone with information about his location is urged to contact the Marietta Police Department. You can do that by calling us, by reaching out through our app to be anonymous, or through Crime Stoppers Greater Atlanta. The information is available in the release for the station, so you can release the image of a black Nissan Rogue. We did also give the license plate. That is public information, and we do need to contact him to determine what took place inside of the apartment this evening. We have a lot of questions. Right now, we need to speak with Mr. Banks to answer some of those questions and determine what took place.
All right, now again, this is stepfather, stepson. We don't know the relationship in terms of, are they always on good terms or bad terms, but police do tell us today that the suspect had been living in that apartment with his family for several months now. But again, don't know if they have been feuding for a while. Again, you just heard the PIO say that this man is dangerous. They want to talk to him. If you know anything, please call Marietta Police. Tom?
And so the manhunt continues, and authorities, Kevin, I'm assuming they don't happen to know where he is at this time. He could be locally here in town, or he could have fled the state for that matter.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Because the interesting thing is that I asked about the vehicle, found nowhere near where he lives, and I asked, is there a particular reason why that car was there? Does he have ties to Atlanta? Was he a student, or did he hang out just in that area? And he said they really don't know.
All right, Fox 5's Kevin Stewart on top of this story for us as they search for this suspect. Kevin, thanks. Want to take you back now as we're joined by meteorologist Alex Forbes to some pictures of Hurricane Melissa. Boy, Alex, this storm has turned into a monster. It is raging down in the Caribbean right now, packing winds of over 180 miles an hour. We got some dramatic pictures of the eye of the storm from the hurricane hunters, the National Hurricane Center. They fly in and out of these things, and this one is packing quite a punch. Jamaica,
look at that,
on its knees right now with this storm. How is it impacting that island? And where is Melissa headed next?
So this was taken yesterday from the hurricane hunters as it was reaching Category 5 status, and that is a perfect example of the stadium effect that you get in the eye of a hurricane, no doubt about it. I've been in one of these. I've been in Hurricane Michael in 2018. I was in the eye, and you just think about the massive cloud cover that is really above you at that moment going on and what is going on. Now, I want to take you over to Fox 5 Live Viper. I've got the high-resolution visible satellite pulled up here, and what we're going to look at is where the storm stands now, and you can see that the eye is not necessarily as open, if you will, as it was earlier. So there it is making landfall on Jamaica, and we've got the somewhat mountainous terrain to thank for that. So it made landfall. It was near New Hope and Black River. There it is. That was at about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Now the center is right over Montego Bay, so that's where conditions have really gone downhill in the last little bit and is continuing to cross the island at this hour. Now, when we look at all of this in the grand scheme of things, there is a lot of wind going on there in Jamaica. We're also looking at a decent amount of rainfall, and by decent amount, I mean flooding upwards of 30 to 40 inches before all is said and done. And in fact, if I tilt this up on its edge, you'll see that we have a lot of this mountainous terrain in Jamaica. And basically what happens is you get these, say, you know, let's see, where's my pin here? See it?
Really took the western part of the island by storm.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up another good point there. In fact, what I'm going to do is pop up a different map here and show you that really the strongest winds are only happening in a narrow swath there. So when we're talking about Hurricane Melissa, it has sustained winds now of 160 miles an hour, down from 185. Yes, you heard me correctly, 185. But that's only happening over that narrow swath there. So the forecast track here over the next several days, we're expecting it to be weaker. This is going to be your different models here. At Category 5 status now, it's going to cross Cuba, which will weaken it even more here in the days to come and eventually get down toward, it's going to be really tropical storm status before all is said and done. But here are some key takeaways for you. This is easily the strongest hurricane this year, in fact, on the planet in any basin. We're not looking at anything that has been stronger than this so far. The highest winds, those were at 185 miles an hour. We also set another record today. The lowest pressure at landfall, 896, we tied that with the Labor Day hurricane of 1936. So
by the way, the lower the pressure, the more intense the storm.
Correct. So think about it this way. The winds are created by a pressure gradient. So the difference between a pressure of 1008 and 1886 or 886.
Okay.
Whenever those distances are far apart, that's when you get the really strong winds.
So where is Melissa headed? Now that it looks like the eye of the storm has moved off the northern coast of Jamaica,
right.
You say Cuba in its sights perhaps next. When I hear Cuba, I think Florida.
Yes, so no, we're not looking at that. That's a piece of good news. So I have this great swath here that shows you the chance of wind.
Okay, so it's headed out into the Atlantic.
Yes, that same dip in the jet stream that's bringing us the cool, damp, raw weather out there today is going to usher Melissa away. But still, you know, you're looking at that Turks and Caicos, southern Bahamas, likely some impacts there.
Yeah.
Not what we're seeing in Jamaica. Don't get me wrong, right? We're not looking at a Category 5 going up the coast, but we are expecting, you know, low-grade hurricane impacts there before all is said and done.
Incredible, because we're really late in the hurricane season at this point. It's the end of October. I remember being down in Miami when Hurricane Wilma hit us, and you were probably like this big.
What year was that? 2005?
That was 2005 or 6. Okay.
So I would have been 6 or 7.
There you go. And that happened, I want to say, in November.
Yes, it was a late season.
Picked up all of this warm water in the Everglades and just ripped Miami apart.
Yeah.
Went from a Category 1 to like a high 2.
Right.
So, but we are kind of late in the season for Melissa, but I guess those Caribbean waters are kind of warm.
They are very warm. We're pushing sea surface temperatures upwards of the mid-80s before all's been said and done. And really quickly before we go, I really also want to highlight what we have seen in the metro today, because I was walking outside there in the parking lot. It is 52 degrees in Atlanta right now. It's straight up cold.
It's like bone-chilling cold.
Yeah, 54 in Stockbridge, 53 in Fairburn. Most everybody's right around that 50-degree mark, and into the evening tonight, we're going to be looking at those temperatures continuing to drop back down into the 40s by the time we get toward 3 a.m., and that's going to set us up for another rainy day tomorrow.
Yeah, because look at tomorrow. We're going to get soaked. It's going to be like another Monday all over again.
Well, the only difference is I don't think it's going to be quite as steady as Monday. It's going to be more of the spitting kind of rain.
Yeah, just
maybe
rainy,
a half inch.
Cold, and miserable.
Yes, but clearing out for Halloween.
All right, good news, Alex. We're going to talk more about the forecast coming up here a bit later in the stream, so stick around for that, Alex. Thanks. Okay, let's head into Israel. And we're back. Welcome back. We're on top of some breaking news out of the Middle East this afternoon, where a ceasefire is barely holding on. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel has ordered the army to immediately carry out what he is calling powerful strikes in Gaza, and Hamas responded by saying that it would then delay handing over the body of a hostage, putting some new pressure on this tenuous U.S.-brokered ceasefire. This news just breaking within the past couple of hours. The Associated Press reported hearing tank fire and seeing some explosions in various parts of Gaza, including Gaza City. The order for strikes comes after an Israeli official said that its forces were fired upon in southern Gaza, and after Hamas handed over body parts Monday that Israel said were the partial remains of a hostage recovered earlier in the war. So breaking news there out of Israel that we wanted to bring you, as Netanyahu says that some very powerful strikes are going to resume in Gaza, testing this ceasefire that the U.S. helped broker and put in place not too long ago. Want to take you live to Washington now, where it is day 28 of the government shutdown with seemingly no end in sight. In front of the microphones today, both Democrat and Republican lawmakers telling each of their camps what they want out of this shutdown. We heard from air traffic controllers not too long ago about how this is the first day that they've gone with a zero balance paycheck, and they're out at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport this afternoon informing travelers of the consequences that this is having on them. Senate Democrats have blocked Republicans' 13th attempt today to reopen the government. This after saying that they've had nearly a week to mull their options, with a series of pressure point deadlines being presented. They've asked to meet with President Trump, who, as you know, is in Asia with talks with Japan and the Chinese leader. So we'll continue to stay on top of developments out of Washington, D.C. as they continue to develop. Meanwhile, are you feeling house poor? We're going to talk to a guest that's going to help us reconcile paying for your house and saving for retirement. How do these two things go together? We're going to explore that as the 3 p.m. streaming hour of Fox Local continues here. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour. I'm Tom Haines with you here live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Are you feeling house poor, or sometimes do you feel like you're spending so much to live in your home that you're unable to save for retirement? Well, a new survey says that millennials feel forced to choose between retirement and home ownership. JJ Perez is the president of Nationwide Corporate Solutions. You know, JJ, we've seen mortgage rates skyrocket. We've seen inventories come down. It's a real conundrum for people who want to live in the home. They want to live the American dream, but they can't afford it. But then they're like, well, this is the only house out there. So they're spending everything to get into it, and then they're unable to put money away in their 401ks. What's happening here?
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. And the thing that I appreciate most about this is that millennials are thinking about all the responsible things that we would want to be thinking about at this age. Home ownership is the American dream, right? And home prices have skyrocketed almost 50% if you look at the Case-Shiller Index since 2020. That is a massive increase. And so for those who were in their homes at that time, they're reaping the benefits of it. For those who are not, they're dealing with what you mentioned, which is this scarcity issue. And so I think, along with the metric that you cite, 35% cite rising housing costs as the biggest obstacle to their retirement readiness. They don't feel like they can put enough in their retirement account while looking at the option to be able to purchase a home. And there really is a lot that can be done there. I think that really at the end of the day, encouraging them to think broadly about this and work with a financial advisor to think about ways that they could potentially afford a home and how they should be thinking about retirement readiness overall. But very encouraging that they're thinking holistically.
Yeah, your company does just that, Nationwide Corporate Solutions. What if they say to themselves, well, my house is a bit of a retirement investment anyway, so it's okay if I don't contribute to my 401k as long as I'm putting money into my home. Is that sort of rational financial thinking?
I wouldn't, as long as you're saving, that is great. That's the first step, right? And so I wouldn't say it's not rational. What I would say is one of the first things you learn about in any kind of investing is diversification. And so for those who are in a home and putting money into their home, that is part of a holistic strategy to prepare for retirement. I think you would want to have other investments that would offset the potential that your home wouldn't grow in value the way that you would hope it would grow in value. So having other investments that would help to complement that. And that's where a financial advisor can be very helpful. One of the things we found in the survey that millennials really aren't thinking about is long-term care. How am I going to pay for my medical expenses in retirement? And I can say that's not something that I wake up thinking about every day either, but it is something that I need to be planning for. And if you're thinking that the value of your home is going to be enough to fulfill those things in retirement, you really need a little bit more than that. And so what I would say is for those who are in a home, that's great that you're putting equity into the home and you're going to be able to have access to that if you need it. For those who aren't in a home, which really is one of the things that was most alarming in this survey, is that these millennials, which are the up and coming generation, almost 60% feel like they can't purchase a home because they need to prepare for retirement. And that's where I think we can be thinking a little bit more outside the box of, do I get a townhome? Do I get a condo? Do I get a smaller home than what I really want? Doesn't have to be the perfect home, because that will, if I'm not building equity now, that will allow me to build equity towards what I really want to accomplish longer term.
Well, and not to mention, mortgage rates are high, but things like property insurance are high, local taxes are high. So, and you talked about townhomes or an apartment, HOA fees are getting higher. Homeowners are getting slammed from like every single direction when it comes to being able to sustain and afford a home. But let's run through some of the numbers with me. How much should my mortgage be compared to how much monthly income I'm pulling in? In other words, what percentage should that spread look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I would really, to get the personalized, goal-based strategies for how you want to prepare for retirement, and even how you manage life risks now. So, when we first got married, we first started having kids, that's when life insurance really came into the pictures. I would really refer anybody who's interested in these things to a financial advisor. You can find referrals to financial advisors at nationwide.com. I can tell you for myself, my parents' recommendation was no more than 10 to 20% of your income. And I think the more that you're able to keep that as a smaller proportion of your income, the more you're able to prepare for the unexpected things in life. And if you can't fit it within, let's say for ourselves, when my wife and I were choosing our first home, if we couldn't fit it into that 20%, what can we fit into that 20%? So a lot of good call outs on your part, from taxes, HOA fees, insurance. Those are all levers within the home purchasing equation that you can pull and that you can do different ways. You live in places with lower taxes. It may be a little bit farther outside of town. Don't live in a place that has HOA fees, right? These are all trade-offs you have to make. And for millennials, it may mean I don't get the home I've always wanted. I get the home I can afford now, given my need to prepare for retirement and what my financial advisor is telling me. And then eventually I get to hopefully grow into the home that I've always wanted.
And let's face it, I mean, it's great owning a home. It is a bit of an investment and something to hold on to in retirement. But, you know, if you're not contributing to an employer-based, say, 401k, or you're not investing even $100 a month into a Roth IRA or investing in the market some way, somehow, you're missing out on some terrific gains in the stock market right now to the tune of upwards of 20%. It's hard to find a property that's matured 20% in 1 year.
I completely agree. And that's where, you know, where financial advisors can also be helpful, because one of the things that we're finding in the study, that we do the study every year, and we're finding that the volatility you're seeing in the markets is really impacting folks that are trying to prepare for living retirement, millennials included. And, you know, some of the things that we're seeing coming out of Capitol Hill, the government shutdown, those types of things, they all impact the markets. That's, again, where a financial advisor can be so helpful to you, because a financial advisor is going to give you the advice from what they've seen, in many cases from decades of these types of experiences, to tell you what the best way is to be able to go through the volatility and come out the other end with the best results possible. Because, quite frankly, when you're looking at your accounts day in, day out, like anything, it can involve some emotional decision making, and it helps to have that pragmatic person you can talk to.
Real quick, JJ, before we will let you go, we know the Federal Reserve is going to meet shortly to talk about whether to lower interest rates once again. Do you think that we're going to see the days of 2%, 3%, even 4% mortgage rates? I mean, I know that the mortgage rates don't have anything to do with the Fed rates, but is that number going to come down to what we saw in the 2018, 2019 days of cheap mortgages?
I will preface this with saying I'm not an economist, but I do keep track of interest rates. I don't expect them to get down to 2 or 3. I do expect them to come down some. And if you are interested in more information on kind of our economic outlook as nationwide, we do have information on our website from our chief economist, Kathy Bosjancic. But I do think that rates will come down, and that's what we're expecting out of the office of our chief economist.
All right, JJ Perez, president of Nationwide Corporate Solutions, with some great advice for millennials who are just looking to live the American dream. JJ, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good afternoon.
All right, you as well. Well, speaking of numbers in the economy, more than 6,500 Georgia children and their families are going to face hardship because of this government shutdown situation. Deidre Dukes is joining us now, reporting on the state's Head Start programs and how it is being impacted by the shutdown.
And we learned today that Georgia's 3 largest Head Start providers have received some emergency funding, an emergency loan, to keep their programs going for the next 45 days or so. That 45 days would start on November 1st. If the federal government shutdown continues. Now, the programs are the YMCA of Metro Atlanta, Sheltering Arms, and Easter Seals of North Georgia. They have secured emergency funding through a bridge loan from the Community Foundation of Georgia. Now, without federal funding, their Head Start programs would have been forced to close on November 1st. Head Start plays a vital role in our community, providing Georgia children access to services like early education, meals, and family support. And that critical financial support will allow the programs to remain operational for 45 days amid the ongoing federal government shutdown.
Duffy next, or do you want to take a break?
Head Start grants, and Head Start providers say also give state officials an opportunity to explore how surplus state funds might be used to support low-income families and the businesses that rely on Head Start parents as essential employees.
It's really only been 6 days since we started pulling this together. It's happened very quickly. We have talked to every representative we can from U.S. representatives. We keep in touch with our senators. We are burning up the phone lines with all elected officials. We've reached out to the city. We've reached out to the state. Everyone knows where we are. And at some point, we realized that our advocacy was not going to keep our doors open. So we went to the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, and they assembled donors who believe in the work that we do with early childhood education. And they came forward within 48 hours last week, between Wednesday and Friday, to say we will stand up a bridge loan so we don't have to close our doors at the end of this week. Again, it's unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened, and I think that speaks to how important this work is and how desperately families need it.
Now, we did also learn today that while the loan will provide some much-needed financial support for those Head Start programs here in North Georgia, that's not the case for the Head Start programs in South Georgia. They are also in dire straits. But as of now, if this federal government shutdown remains ongoing through November 1st, those programs in South Georgia will be forced to shut their doors if they don't get similar relief there. Back to you.
All right, Fox 5's Deidre Dukes. Deidre, thanks. Talk about the government shutdown, how it's affecting air travel. You're starting to see images on social media of the lines at places like Hartsfield-Jackson International going out the door as air traffic controllers and TSA workers are impacted. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, held a news conference at LaGuardia Airport earlier today. We're going to share with you some of what he had to say, plus the latest on Hurricane Melissa, and it is International Bat Week. What's that all about? We'll tell you as Halloween approaches next. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour. Always with you live here in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. I'm Tom Haynes here streaming with you as we take a live look at Hartsfield-Jackson International. You know, we've been talking about the devastating impact this government shutdown has had on social service benefits like the SNAP program and so many other services and benefits that people who are less fortunate are in critical need and take advantage of. Those programs are now feeling the impact, as are travelers who are flying around the country and the world, as TSA workers and air traffic controllers face zero-sum paychecks because they're not getting paid while the government is shut down. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, was at LaGuardia Airport this morning and brought us up to speed on the status of how air travel is handling the whole government shutdown.
Oftentimes, these guys are nameless and they're faceless, but they're the men and women who work in our towers to make sure that our flights are on time, that our flights aren't delayed, and your flights are safe. And so I wanted you to have a chance to see a few of the men and women who aren't getting paid today. The men and women who rely on the paychecks from the federal government to support their families, to pay their car payments, to pay their rent, to pay for gas in their vehicles, to get into work. It puts food on their table. Yesterday, I had a controller who talked to me about his 9-year-old, 10-year-old daughter who made the traveling volleyball team. And as many of us know, it's an honor when your child makes the traveling team, but with that comes a cost. You have to pay to be part of that team. And he had to talk to his 9-year-old daughter about her not being able to join that team because he had to preserve and reserve his money because he thought that this day would come, the fact that he wasn't going to get paid for his work as an air traffic controller. It's those stories that are happening throughout our community that are having real impact on these controllers' lives. I've been clear to our air traffic controllers, they need to show up for work. They do really important work for our country, and they need to show up. But I'm not going to lie to anybody to not say that they're not feeling the stress. The fact that they are working, and oftentimes they are head of households, they're the only income earners in their homes and they have families, and the fact that they're having a hard time paying their bills. And this is day one. And day two gets harder, day three is harder after that as expenses continue to roll. Many of our controllers can make it without this first paycheck. They've been in the job for 10, 15, 20 years. They plan for days like this. But we have a lot of new controllers who are still in training, that aren't at a high level in income, and they can't handle what's happening to them today. Those are the very people who have now looked for side jobs. You've heard the stories of controllers working at an Uber or a DoorDash, a controller who might go to a food bank to help make ends meet from this point to the point where they're going to get that paycheck. But I'll tell you this, almost every controller can't make it 2 paychecks. They can't make it without 2 paychecks. And so I think the message is clear. And I appreciate Nick and the controllers. They've sent a message: open up the government, end the shutdown. Figure out how you guys can negotiate. Have a conversation, but pay us in the interim. Make sure we get paid for the work that we provide to the American people.
All right, that is Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy speaking with air traffic controllers standing behind him who, as of today, are not collecting a paycheck because of the government shutdown, urging Senate Democrats and Republicans to come to terms on an agreement to reopen the government so that air traffic will not be disrupted and their livelihoods won't be disrupted by what's happening in Washington, D.C. We'll continue, of course, to stay on top of that situation and update you as developments warrant. Well, according to the National Park Service, it is National Bat Week, a week where we learn about bats and how important they are to our ecosystem. Funny that it leads up to Halloween coming up on Friday. Appropriate, too. Our Chris Rosenthal is out and about with some folks to tell us about bats, what to do if we find one in our home, God forbid, Chris, and how important they are to our ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Watkinsville right now in Heritage Park in Oconee County, and bats, I mean, I didn't quite realize, just how prevalent they are here in Georgia. I mean, they are almost everywhere. And the reason why we're here, this park, is there's actually quite a few, about a half dozen or so of these bat houses. We were just looking around up there earlier. This is Sam with the Department of Natural Resources, and we were looking up there earlier with this, it's called a boroscope, and had some images of these bats that were inside, resting, asleep, probably about, what would you say, about 10, 12 of them or so?
Yeah, 10, 12, maybe 15 up in there.
Yeah, and you say they kind of go out in this area here and forage, and then they come back to these bat houses, huh?
Yeah, at night the bats will leave their roosts and they'll fly around foraging for insects. They eat a bunch of moths and mosquitoes and beetles and other night-flying insects, and then they'll come back to their roost at dawn.
And, eating those insects, I mean, that's actually a really important part of our economy and agriculture, huh?
Yep, bats play a vital role in our ecosystem in Georgia and in the United States. As the top predator for night-flying insects in the country, they save farmers billions of dollars, estimated over $20 billion annually on pesticides that they don't have to use that bats are providing for them.
Now, a box like this, it's kind of a nice, cozy place for them that they like to hang out and rest. It's kind of similar to our attics. If somebody finds a bat in their attic, is it dangerous? What should they do? Rabies, should they worry about?
Yeah, just like any wild mammal, bats can carry rabies. Less than 1% of wild bats actively have the disease at any given time. But just like you wouldn't want to pet a raccoon that's going to your trash cans, you don't want to pick up a bat that's in your attic. You can go to our website. If you just type in Georgia DNR bats, you can get all kinds of resources and help on getting bats out of your home and attic yourself, or resources on who to contact to get a wildlife control operator out there to help you do that.
Now, this is an interesting thing. We were talking, Tom, we were talking earlier that bats actually have really good immune systems, but there is one disease now that's really threatening the bat population here in the U.S., white nose syndrome. Talk to me about that. And we have a picture of it, too.
Yeah, white nose syndrome is a fungal disease that was brought to the United States over from Europe, and the spores from the fungus are in our cave systems. It was first introduced in Georgia in the winter of 2013, and that fungus grows on any of the open skin on the bat, so on its face, ears, wings, and tail, and that fungus will grow on them while they're trying to hibernate. So it'll wake them up from their hibernation in the middle of winter, and they can actually fight it off, but since it's the middle of winter and there's no food available on the landscape, since they eat insects, they eventually use all their fat stores and starve to death, and that's how they're dying.
Now, it's Halloween coming up. Of course, it's kind of spooky, bat season. We're watching a lot of horror movies, and bats, sucking blood. Do they actually drink blood?
So across the whole world, we have like right around 1,500 bat species. Only 3 of those actually consume blood. We have 3 vampire bat species, but they are in Central and South America. And 2 of those species specialize on birds, and only 1 specializes in mammals. It doesn't really suck blood. It will make an incision on a mammal like a cow or a livestock, and then just lap up the blood. They're not draining anything the blood like a vampire would, but there are a couple species that do, consume blood.
So we don't need to worry about these guys that we have here in Georgia.
Nope, all of our bats in Georgia eat insects, so they're helping keep mosquitoes and night-flying insects out of your backyards.
And they're everywhere. They're even under the highways.
All over, yeah. Bats, like we've already mentioned, bat houses and attics. But we do a lot of surveys in the wintertime of bats using culverts and bridges. So especially when you get more south in our state where there's less caves available, bats will use culverts under the highway as their hibernacula.
So you can keep that in mind as you drive under Highway 75, that there may be bats under there just chilling out, relaxing, and you don't even realize it.
Yep, even those big, noisy interstates have bats roosting underneath them.
And it's International Bat Week, but next week is a Bat Blitz.
Yep, the Georgia Bat Working Group is hosting a coastal bat blitz on the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, a joint blitz with the South Carolina Bat Working Group, where we have bat biologists from all over the Southeast coming together to sample heavily in one area of the country, so we can collect as much data as we can over 3 days. Enough data that would really take us and our small crew months to get together.
Very cool stuff. That'd be a really cool thing to look forward to.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tom, I think these bats, they're out there and they're a lot more than we even realize. So
yeah, and you know, in the summertime, if you're in a field like that, you can actually see them swarming around in the sky doing exactly what he was telling you about, eating insects, things like mosquitoes and pests that are so annoying. You know, while you were talking, I was looking up things about Bat Week, and it is this week. Batweek.org has some really cool resources, and just a few days left to learn about all the good things that bats add to our environment and our ecosystem. Chris Rosenthal with the Bat Experts out there. Chris, thanks. When we come back, we're going to get a final update on Hurricane Melissa, which is battering Jamaica right now. We're going to check in and see where the storm is and where it's headed as we continue. Welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. It's been another busy afternoon of news, as it always is. You know, sometimes we go into these streams, gee, not a lot's going on, but a lot happens within this hour. We're so glad you're with us, either on Fox Local, our streaming app, on the TV, or on your mobile device, or listening to us on the radio, 107.9 HD2 FM. We have been tracking monster Hurricane Melissa as it just batters and cripples the island of Jamaica. It is a Category 5 hurricane right now. It made landfall, packing winds of 180 miles an hour, making it one of the most intense hurricanes on record. So the poor folks down in Jamaica are having to deal with structural issues, power outages, and Lord knows how long it's going to take them to get back on their feet. But the eye of the hurricane moving over the western part of the island where Montego Bay is, a lot of the nice resorts that you might have been to are on the west side of Jamaica, and that is exactly where Melissa made landfall. So it'll be interesting to see, once all is said and done, once some TV crews can get in there to assess the damage and find out how much destruction Melissa left behind. If you have family interests down there, probably a little difficult to get in touch with folks down in Jamaica, but hopefully give it a couple of days when you can make contact with them and find out if they are okay. The storm is now headed northbound for Cuba, and then, as meteorologist Alex Forbes told us a little bit earlier here in the stream, it's going to make a right-hand turn, thankfully, and head out into the Atlantic Ocean with no contact or threat to the United States. But these are pretty dramatic images that we got in. Look at the eye wall. Alex called that the stadium effect, if you will. That is like, it's like being in Mercedes-Benz Stadium and looking up, and that's what you see, the rim of this hurricane and the massive structure and complexity of this storm. And you can appreciate just how strong it is as the sun shines right through. It looks like some kind of image from Star Wars or something here, but that is actually Melissa. Just before she made landfall as a very, very powerful monster Category 5 hurricane. So we're going to continue to follow the situation with Melissa as she continues to make her way northward and bring you updates as we get them. Now to the extraordinary events happening in Los Angeles. Game 3 of the World Series, the longest game in history by innings, which was actually set at Dodger Stadium 7 years ago. So I believe there was a tie there. Dodgers now leading the series 2-1. Freddie Freeman, former Atlanta Braves, smacking one out of the park last night to close this game out. Sarah Allegre has been watching all the action live in Los Angeles for us. Boy, what a game, Sarah.
Tom, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, 2 games in one. The fans here at Dodger Stadium, they definitely got their money's worth last night. We had that regular 9-inning game. We doubled that for Game 3. Just incredible. 18 innings, Tom, of witnessing history, essentially. 6 hours and 39 minutes to be exact. You know, the game in 2018 went just over 7 hours, but really, this was one of the longest games in World Series history. Again, the last time that happened was right here, Dodger Stadium, 7 years ago. The Dodgers ended it the same way that they did last night with that walk-off.
Incredible, Sarah, because, you know, a little bit of a bittersweet moment watching Freddie Freeman. I mean, we were all cheering for him here in Atlanta, but he is just a powerhouse. I mean, I believe he holds records now, the most home runs hit by a player when it comes to World Series games. I mean, he's just fun to watch and really incredibly unbelievable when you think about it, a machine.
Absolutely, and I admire him especially because I'm a fellow lefty like Freddie Freeman, but just to watch him in action last night was so phenomenal. I know so many people looking up to him and what he's done on that field. I mean, the last time that happened, 2018, when Max Muncy did it with the Dodgers as well. But just to see him in action, and we talked to him later on in the clubhouse, and he was just talking about that moment for him. He said he wasn't tired physically, more so it was the emotional, the mental exhaustion from a game like that when you're going 18 innings on. And he said, you know, I wasn't getting tired endurance-wise. We are so fired up at this game. And when you're dealing with 2 of the best teams, there's a lot at stake here. And we just saw it in the way that he played and finished off that game last night. Truly historic, Tom.
All right, so Sarah, Dodgers now leading the series 2-1. Preview tonight's game. It's again in Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, 8 o'clock Eastern time. What are we looking for tonight?
Yeah, 5 p.m. local, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're just looking ahead into Game 4, and I think just riding that momentum off of what we saw yesterday. And I know the Blue Jays hoping for a comeback. I mean, they led the Major League Baseball this past regular season with the most comebacks. I want to say 45 after trailing behind. So we know that they are tenacious. They have that fortitude to move forward, and so I think all eyes are going to be on what they end up doing tonight. But I think just fans hoping for the magic that we saw last night, that it bleeds in to Game 4. And I know a lot of Dodgers fans hoping this series wraps up here at home.
Speaking of the fans, real quick, Sarah, before we let you go, the Dodgers manager calling it one of the greatest World Series games of all time. Are you seeing that sort of reflected there in the energy and the excitement among the fans out in Los Angeles?
Absolutely. It's an incredible storyline that we're witnessing here at Dodger Stadium, and you can feel the energy. Yes, we felt it before in Toronto, but after a game like that, 18 innings, just seeing these Dodgers fans hold tight to one another, the anticipation, the anxiety. I mean, these folks were standing up for hours yesterday as we went into overtime, as we had those additional innings. So I think that really speaks to the emotion that's pouring out here at Dodger Stadium, but not only here inside, but really across portions of Southern California.
All right, Sarah Legre with all the action in Los Angeles. Game 4 today, 5 p.m. local time, 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll see it all unfold right here on Fox 5. Sarah, thanks. And thank you so much for streaming with us this afternoon in the 3 p.m. hour. I'm Tom Haines, as always, with you here live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Fox Local. Meantime, the news continues right here, right now.
Fox 5 News at 4 starts right now.
Testimony continues in the trial where a man is accused of murdering and the disappearance of Tiffany Foster, what a former county inmate told jurors about the search for the missing mother. Hurricane Melissa slams into Jamaica, bringing violent winds and heavy rain. The latest on conditions there next. But first, a search is underway for a man accused of killing his stepfather. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for Fox 5 News at 4. I'm Christine Spiro. Police have posted a lookout for the suspected killer. It's a story we've been following since last night. Fox 5's Kevin Stewart has new information now about the victim and the suspect. Kevin joins us live from Marietta Police Headquarters with the story. Kevin?
Yeah, Christine, we have learned that the suspect had been living with his family for a few months now, but the nature of that argument they had last night is still unclear.
Here's your suspect, Farron Banks. He's a lanky guy, standing 6'5", 160 pounds, but police call him dangerous. The 26-year-old stepson accused of shooting his stepdad, Michael Jackson, after an argument at their home.
It's very sad that this has happened.
Jackson is fondly remembered by neighbors.
He's definitely a great dad, great husband. He was a great gentleman. He always spoke when passing or whatever, always making a joke.
Marietta police is trying to piece this together. They say Banks took off from the crime scene at the Briggs at Powers Park Apartments and ended up here on John Hope Drive near the Atlanta University Center and left the car.
With regard to where the vehicle was located, we have the same questions that you do. Could there be a friend or a family member that live in the area? Is there some tie to it? Or was this simply a place to drop the car and get on a train or a bus or leave with someone else? We don't know those answers yet. If you have information related to that and you're seeing this video, please reach out to us.
Back at the apartment complex.
You see how quiet it is now? That's how it usually is.
Neighbors are still stunned this happened in a quiet neighborhood and has his parent and a reflective mood.
I have 4 sons, my wife and I, and I know how hard it is, sometimes being a parent, and I just feel bad, I hate to hear, that happened.
Take another look at the suspect. Kareem Rashid doesn't know this young man, but says he knows this.
You can't run forever. You understand? Turn yourself in. Do the right thing.
All right, now Marietta police do have possession of the vehicle that was found in an apartment complex over by the AUC. We're told that they're going to get a warrant and take a look inside that vehicle to look for any kind of evidence. If you know anything about that car, know anything about this suspect, police want to hear from you. Reporting live in Marietta, Cobb County, Kevin Stewart, Fox 5 News.
All right, Kevin, thanks for the latest on that case. We now know the name of the Ackworth man involved in a deadly officer-involved shooting in Cherokee County Saturday night. Deputies shot 26-year-old Andre Alvear at a home on Whisperwood Trail. Investigators say Alvear came out of the home with a gun during a welfare check. Deputies also found the badly decomposed body of his mother, Luisa Penetra, inside the home. Hurricane Melissa has made landfall in southwest Jamaica and is among the most powerful hurricanes on record to hit that country. The storm hit near New Hope in the parish of St. Elizabeth this afternoon. The powerful Category 5 hurricane is already lashing parts of the island with winds up to 185 miles an hour. Catastrophic flooding and landslides are expected as Melissa makes her way across the island.
The electricity grid has already been impacted by hurricane conditions, which have caused several power outages across the island.
The Jamaican government said it had done all it could to prepare as it warned of catastrophic winds and devastating damage. Melissa is the strongest hurricane of the 2025 Atlantic season so far and has now become the most powerful to strike Jamaica since tropical records were started for the Atlantic basin 174 years ago. What is happening weather-wise in our backyard? A live look here at our Omni camera showing that cloud cover is still hanging around. We had lots of gray skies again today. Meteorologist Jonathan Stacy watching the weather here in our backyard and in the tropics with Hurricane Melissa.
Yeah, we'll bring in some rain tomorrow, but where it's raining the heaviest right now is still over portions of Jamaica, although it looks like the center of the storm is now back into the now North Caribbean Sea as it aims for eastern Cuba. Let's get straight to the latest stats that are in. Now a Category 4 hurricane with winds sustained at 150 miles an hour as it moves to the northeast at 8 miles an hour. That 3 to 4 hour period of land friction helped lower and decrease those wind speeds. However, a Category 4 hurricane is still a major hurricane, and we have seen just how significantly impactful this storm has been in unleashing flash floods all across the island of Jamaica. Early pictures are already starting to come in, but up next, as the storm prepares to make a second landfall, is the eastern section of Cuba. It has to go over some really steep and rugged mountains here as it meets the coast. That southern coast there near Guantanamo Bay is where we're expecting a landfall, but once again, that landfall, Guantanamo Bay about right here, but that landfall happening about 50 miles to the west there. We'll watch that storm not only as it makes landfall there, but then it brushes across the southernmost islands of the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos, where there are currently tropical storm and hurricane warnings that are in effect at this hour. This has been a storm of prolific proportions, but it is not done yet. Let's take a look at the latest track in from the National Hurricane Center, that cone forecast showing the storm maintaining its strength even as it crosses over into the Atlantic. Still a major hurricane at a Cat 3. Once again, the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos watching this storm closely before it likely becomes a problem for Bermuda. Why is this storm not moving to the east? Well, the reason why it's going to stay away from the east coast to not advance further to the west is that system that brought us rain yesterday, well, it's blocking it. Meanwhile, there's another system out across the Mississippi that is moving our way. I'm tracking tomorrow's rain chances in my complete Fox 5 Storm Team forecast.
All right, Jonathan, thanks so much. The fight to end the second largest government shutdown continues. The Senate today failed to pass a funding bill that would reopen the government. The final vote was 54 to 45, falling short of the 60 votes needed to move forward. The urgency intensifies as hundreds of federal workers are set to miss their first paycheck since the shutdown began. Millions of American families are on edge as SNAP benefits are about to run out. Democratic senators, including those representing states with many federal workers, do not appear ready to back down. Today marks the first full missed paycheck for air traffic controllers since the government shutdown began. The National Air Traffic Controllers Association has called for an end to the government shutdown at airports across the country, including right here in Atlanta. Fox 5's Kim Loeffler joins us from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with more. Kim?
Well, air traffic controllers handed out flyers here at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport earlier today, letting people know the impact this lack of pay is having on workers and sharing what they can do to help.
I'm going to give you some information about paying air traffic controllers during the shutdown.
At the world's busiest airport, air traffic controllers have traded in headsets for handouts, helping travelers understand the impact as their paychecks stay grounded.
I had to reach out to my mortgage to try to ask for forbearance. Car notes that come up asking for forbearance.
Today's the first day that we've fully missed a paycheck.
I heard that. As the government shutdown continues, air traffic controllers nationwide are working without pay, causing staffing shortages at airports across the country. Tuesday morning, the FAA reported staffing issues at the Atlanta Terminal Radar Approach Control Center in Peachtree City that helps guide planes to the Atlanta airport. This all comes as the country faced an air traffic controller shortage before the shutdown began.
We're currently operating with 10,800 fully certified air traffic controllers, which is already 3,800 short of the FAA staffing target.
Tuesday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy assured travelers air traffic controllers are continuing to keep the skies safe as the government shutdown continues.
If they don't have the right staffing levels, or if there's distractions in towers, they will slow down the landings and departures in different airports across the country. And what that means for the American people is that means more delays.
I'm supporting you guys.
Well, thank you.
I think it's ridiculous, you know. You work, you get paid for it. I hate that for them.
And controllers here say they hope travelers turn that concern into action.
Reach out to their local elected officials and to have them end the shutdown. Air traffic controllers did not start the shutdown. We're not responsible for ending the shutdown. We're just stuck in the middle.
Flight delays have slowly increased here throughout the day, now at 152 with 10 flights delayed. Live this afternoon at Hartsfield-Jackson, Kim Loeffler, Fox 5 News.
Yeah, the trickle-down effect from a government shutdown is definitely significant. Kim, thanks so much for that perspective from the airport. Well, President Trump is on a trip through Asia, and today he stopped in Japan to meet with the country's new Prime Minister, Sanae Takashi. She took office just a few weeks ago and has upheld a trade deal that was inherited from her predecessor. It calls for more than $500 billion in U.S. investments to avert higher tariffs. She also signed a second agreement to ramp up mining and processing of rare earth minerals.
This woman is a winner. So, you know, we've become very close friends all of a sudden because their stock market today and our stock market today hit an all-time high. That means we're doing something right.
President Trump will head to South Korea later tonight, the last scheduled stop of his trip. That is where he's expected to meet with China's President Xi Jinping. New at 4, a Dade County jury has convicted a man of drug trafficking. The jury found Tyler Blake Gamble guilty of trafficking fentanyl and possession of fentanyl with intent to distribute. Gamble was already on parole following a drug conviction in Cobb County and under investigation for selling several ounces of methamphetamine to a buyer in DeKalb County and Alabama in April of last year. Superior Court Judge Chris Arndt sentenced Gamble to 40 years with 25 years to serve in a Georgia prison. Testimony continues today in the murder and disappearance of Tiffany Foster. What a former inmate told jurors about his attempts to help locate the missing mother. And voters in one county will head to the polls in less than 2 months. What we know about the special election in District 23 just ahead. And nearly a week after the illegal NBA gambling bust, the league is responding, how it plans to move forward and regain fans' trust. Plus, we're giving you a chance to win tickets to the November 15th football showdown between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Texas Longhorns. To enter, go to fox5atlanta.com/dogs. That's DAWGS, of course. Our winner gets 2 tickets plus pregame hospitality, signed merchandise, and lodging. Be sure to enter by November 9th for your chance to win. Testimony in the Tiffany Foster disappearance and murder case continued today with a former county inmate telling jurors he was working with law enforcement to help find her because he believed she was still alive. Fox 5's Doug Evans has more from the Coweta County Courthouse.
Investigators say Curtis Culbertson, an inmate, was just one of many people duped by Tiffany Foster's former fiancé, Reginald Robertson, the one who's on trial for her murder and disappearance. Culbertson took the stand and told jurors that while he and Reginald Robertson were locked up in the Coweta County Jail at the same time in 2021, he allowed Robertson to use his phone privileges to make a call, and in that call that was recorded, as all calls are in the jail, Robertson's voice is heard telling someone on the other end to get some canned goods and put them down a pipe at a certain home, that pipe leading underground. And Culbertson told jurors that he thought that food was put into that underground pipe for Tiffany Foster. And he believed she was alive, and he believed if he acted, maybe he could help save her. Well, turns out it was just a ruse on Robertson's part. What law enforcement believed was an attempted misdirection in their attempts to locate Tiffany Foster over the years. In fact, a number of law enforcement officers have now testified about numerous searches of wells and property, sometimes with cadaver dogs. 4 years of it. Tiffany Foster's never been found, echoing the prosecutor's opening statement in which they told jurors Tiffany is not here to tell their story, so they're doing their best to reconstruct it for her. Last Monday afternoon, an FBI cell phone expert testified that Tiffany's phone disconnected from the Verizon network at 4:09 a.m. on March 1st, 2021. That's the day they believe she disappeared, and all calls since then went to voicemail. That same expert testified that Robertson and co-defendant Jeremy Walker's cell phones, they were pinging in close proximity at a number of locations in Coweta County at that time. There's been a lot of evidence so far about this November 2020 incident in which Reginald Robertson is accused of kidnapping Tiffany, tying her up and threatening her with a gun. That former inmate that I was telling you about, Curtis Culbertson, he repeated that story as well, saying Robertson told him all about it in a confession in the jailhouse. As for the murder itself, there's been no bombshell evidence yet in the 5 days of testimony so far that would link Robertson and by extension then Jeremy Walker to her murder and to concealing her death. The prosecution is expected to wrap up by midweek. I'm Doug Evans, Fox 5 News in Coweta County.
All right, Doug, thanks so much. Checking back in here with meteorologist Jonathan Stacy on this cold, raw day. I mean, we even started off cold this morning. It doesn't feel like it warmed up that much.
I just talked with Alex and David off camera here, and I said it was January.
It feels that way, right?
What it was. We have just flipped the calendar ahead because this is a kind of a shock to the system coming off the 70s and even the 80s of just 2 weeks ago. Today, the temperature has not moved much at all. The mercury has been rather stagnant. As we take a look at our low temperatures since midnight, 48 degrees in Canton, 48 also. The starting number for Gainesville, 54 for Eatonton, 51 in Thomaston. Here in Atlanta, we started out at 51 degrees, and we reached a high as of right now of 54 degrees. You're the outlier there in Rome, as you tend to be at 61, 59 the warmest temperature in Dalton, 56 in Blairsville. What kind of day is it where Blairsville gets warmer than the metro area and 4 points on the south side? Well, we're dealing with this cool pattern, and with that wedge firmly in place, temperatures have not grown much in clouds. They have been very stubborn, and they're still stagnant as we take a look out over downtown and midtown Atlanta on this Tuesday afternoon. The current temperature stands at 54 degrees. Winds coming in out of the east-northeast at 9 miles an hour. Not so much rain in the rain gauge today. Yesterday we got our belly full, and we're going to get some more. Your first sign of that rain coming through may be a couple drops that you hear on your rooftops overnight, as some showers will sneak in before the sun comes up. Around 11 o'clock tonight, we drop down to 50 degrees, maybe some communities dipping down into the upper 40s in the metro area as we get ready for our next round of energy, our next rainmaker to move across the Mississippi and into our direction. Here's Here's yesterday's ordeal. It's moving out into the Atlantic, and this mechanism right here is the same thing that is keeping Melissa from moving westward and to the north. It's going to pull it over close to Bermuda as the system rolls off coast. Then we have another area of low pressure that's going to take center stage across our area tomorrow. So let's go ahead and track it. At 10 o'clock tonight, things are still fairly calm and quiet across the region. Clouds are still firmly in place, but by the time you wait tomorrow morning, and maybe even before then, across northwest Georgia, you have showers breaking out between 59 and 75. There will be some light to moderate showers first thing in the morning, but it looks like we can get into work and into school safely without needing the rain gear, but I would still have it on standby because it's around noon when the skies really start to open up and the wall of water moves in from the west. Jets across the metro area between the hours of, I say, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock. Things are starting